This day is a new beginning in the history of freedom on this earth. Our global victory has come from the courage and stamina and spirit of free men and women united in the determination to fight. These words, spoken by President Harry S. Truman on August 14, 1945, during a national radio broadcast, captured how the entire world felt. Hello, I'm Linda Shenton-Matchett, author, speaker, and history geek. While researching my stories, I unearthed tons of intriguing historical information that does not end up in my books. So I've created this channel to share those tidbits with you. Today, we're going to talk about Victory over Japan Day, or VJ Day, as it's more often referred to. By August 1945, America had been at war for almost 4 years. Poland and England for 6. Victory in Europe Day was declared in May 1945, but conflict still raged with the Japanese, whom it seemed would never give up. In fact, no Japanese military unit had surrendered during the entire duration of World War II. Despite being victorious for the Allies, the battles on Iwo Jima and Okinawa were devastating, with heavy losses. Plans were made to invade the Japanese home islands. However, prior to the execution of the operation, on August 6, 1945, the United States dropped the atomic bomb, the first of its kind, on Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. On August 10th, Japan notified President Truman via cable, via the Swiss diplomat mission, of its intent to surrender on August 14th of 1945. As soon as the news was released on August 14th, celebrations began across the globe. Although I do wonder if there was some percentage of people who didn't believe the news. The United Kingdom announced its official VJ Day would be the following day, August 15th, 1945. September 2nd, the date on the surrender documents were signed on the USS Missouri, is the official U.S. commemoration. In Japan, August 15th is known as Memorial Day for the end of the war. The Japanese government communicated the coming surrender over Radio Tokyo on the morning of August 15th. And then shortly after noon, on his first ever radio broadcast, Emperor Hirohito announced the acceptance of the terms of the Potsdam Declaration on a radio broadcast, blaming the use of a new and most cruel bomb as a way to get the surrender, saying, "Should we continue to fight, it would not only result in the ultimate collapse and obliteration of the Japanese nation, but would lead also to the total extinction of human civilization." One source commented that, quote, "What the emperor failed to mention, however, was that the Allies had delivered Japan an ultimatum to current on July 28, 1945, which would have prevented the bombings on August 6th and 9th. In Britain, Prime Minister Clement Attlee confirmed the news in his radio broadcast, saying, "The last of our enemies is laid low." He went on to thank the Allies with a special note to the U.S., quote, "without whose prodigious efforts the war in the East would still have many years to run," unquote. King George VI broadcast his message the following night, saying in part, "Our hearts are full to overflowing, as are your own. Yet there is not one of us who has experienced this terrible war who does not realize that we should feel its inevitable consequences long after we have all forgotten our rejoicings today," end quote. In London, people took to the streets, civilians and members of the armed forces alike. One article reported soldiers dancing in a conga line on Regent Street. In Paris, Frenchmen paraded on the Champs-Élysées singing "Don't Fence Me In." And in Berlin, American soldiers reportedly shouted, "It's over in the Pacific." The Chinese set off fireworks, and in Manila, residents were said to sing "God Bless America." In Washington, D.C., a crowd yelling "We want Harry" tried unsuccessfully to break into the White House. New York's Times Square filled with the largest crowd it had ever seen, with kissing, dancing, and singing. One of the most famous photographs, a soldier kissing a woman who appears to be a nurse, was taken in Times Square and published in Life magazine. Life also reported that news of the war's end, quote-unquote, sparked a coast-to-coast frenzy of kissing everyone in skirts that happened along. The victory itself was announced by headline on a zipper, or news ticker, which read, "Official, asterisk, Truman announces Japanese surrender." The 6 asterisks representing the branches of the U.S. Armed Forces. Reportedly, in the garment district, workers threw out cloth scraps and ticker tape, leaving a pile 5 inches deep on the streets. In thousands of small towns across America, residents celebrated with fireworks, confetti, and impromptu parades waving flags and cheering. Tragically, some celebrations, such as the one in San Francisco, was categorized as a 3-night orgy of vandalism, looting, assault, robbery, rape, and murder. Another article called it the deadliest riot in the city's history. Australian authorities closed pubs, as they had on VE Day, to manage the celebrations. However, this apparently dissuaded very few people, and crowds gathered in the streets with strangers dancing in the city squares. The day over there is called VP Day, or Victory in the Pacific. China announced a 3-day holiday to celebrate VJ Day, starting September 3rd. Beginning in 1946, September 3rd was celebrated as Victory of War of Resistance against Japan Day. In Japan, some Japanese soldiers committed suicide. Others murdered Allied POWs. Fortunately for the POWs and civilian internees at Batu Langtang Camp, liberation came 4 days before the order to kill them was carried out. Hong Kong was handed over by the Imperial Japanese Army to the Royal Navy on August 30th, 1945, and resumed its pre-war status as a British dependency, celebrating that date as Liberation Day. At the signing of the surrender terms on the Missouri, the somber ceremony lasted about 30 minutes with an invocation by a Navy chaplain and a recording of the American national anthem being played. There was also singing and hundreds of airplanes flying in formation over the ship. Delegates from other Allied nations attended and signed the Articles of Surrender. Those were China, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and the Provisional Government of the French Republic. Along with raising the 4-star Admiral flag, the 1853 American flag with 31 stars and 13 stripes that Commodore Matthew Perry had flown during his expedition to Japan, which resulted in the first treaty between the U.S. and Japan, was also put on display. An interesting aside is that a peace treaty between Japan and the remaining allies was not signed until 1952, and with Russia until 1956. VJ Day was bittersweet in light of the worldwide destruction and death. As historian Donald L. Miller, Ph.D., wrote, "For those who had seen the face of battle and been in the camps and under the bombs and had lived, there was a sense of immense release." To this day, Rhode Island continues to commemorate the event as a legal holiday annually on the second Monday in August, the only state to do so. Would you like to learn even more history? Stop by my blog found at www.lindashentonmatchett.com. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.